Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 50th episode of Play, Watch, Listen. I'm Alanah, Pearce. That's Austin. I did it wrong again. Austin Wintry, video game composer. That is Greg Miller, video game voice actor. And that is Mike Bithell, video game director.
Hey,
thank you guys so much. We're so excited to have our 50th episode here today. We've come a long way.
It's been what, nearly a year now?
Yeah.
I guess. I'm
It's been over 50, a year.
That seems
That's
right.
usually how it works. Yeah.
It's been
Guys,
over
generally. All right, Greg, stop. Greg, always you do this every time,
know,
man. Like,
every
I don't
time
mean
we
to
do a
ride you,
show.
but I feel like
I'm just
it's
getting
been
started.
49 episodes of me coming in and having to really tell you
All right,
how
I
voice
finally
acting
figured
works.
out Discord.
Nonsense
I
every
got the
time.
link to Discord. Are you guys ready?
Who is that?
I was sitting on
I think
Zoom.
our wires are crossed. Is everyone?
There's
someone
interference.
someone
This is
outside?
we're getting Zoom
I think
bombed.
he might be here
Fucking
for the
Miller,
wrong
get out of
thing.
here. No. Out.
No.
Out.
No.
Out.
Troy,
Out.
don't do this. The people
Look,
have spoken.
you're a
They want a real
talented
voice
man.
actor.
He had a really
You know what I mean?
good performance in a Mike Bithell game, is all I'm saying.
I
Salt there.
swear to
Salt
God.
there.
I
That's
auditioned
right.
for that.
Yeah.
I
That's
auditioned
Salt
for that, and
Conspiracy.
Mike Bithell was like,
Update
"You've
that this
actually
week.
already
Yeah, it's
cast
great.
the role." And I was like, "What if I put on glasses and then I took it off?" It's like, you don't have the
have
It's not the
It's
powers.
same. It's not the magic.
It's one
It's
of
not the
those-
magic.
There's a lot, there's careers that are going up, and then there's careers that are going down, Troy. Like,
Ones
you
that
were up
peaked.
here
Yeah.
for a long time.
But
like a long
2013 was the apex of it, and then it's just kind of
Yeah.
been this. You got a little bump on Uncharted 4, and then it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
Yeah. Did we really need a brother? Did we really need a fourth
that
one?
we never
weren't
mentioned
sure.
before.
Overstuffed, wasn't it? Really? Yeah.
Don't you have a
Exactly.
channel to run?
Yeah,
Fine.
get out of here. Get out of here.
Congratulations on your 50th episode, everybody.
Thank you,
Have a
Greg
good
Miller.
time.
Thank
Bye,
you,
Greg.
Greg.
Bye,
Bye.
Stay out of my industry.
Oh,
Get out of my industry.
the perspective changed in a way I didn't expect it to. Oh, I have to adjust the video.
Because it's all messed up
That's
now. This
typically
is-
what happens with me is
don't
that
know
I
why
bring
that
about a
happens.
perspective.
Seems very odd. Yeah,
We are
it made
definitely
everything
so
wider.
far.
This is bullshit.
This
I'm
is
gonna
a
call
mixing
bullshit.
challenge of an episode so far.
Here we go. Go this way.
Automatically, I call bullshit. Here's the
life
deal.
magic.
There we go. There we go.
Every episode, 49 in, Alanah Pearce is all bundled up in a nice little
Green screen.
jumper.
It's bundled. Oh.
Austin Wintry has
I'm
Seems all right.
above you.
It seems good.
I typically
That's okay.
has whatever swag, a hoodie. Mike Bithell, just Mike, chooses his changes.
Cheers,
his
Troy.
beverage.
It's
I
been a great
decided
year,
like,
Troy.
oh, you know what? It's nice and cloudy
get
in the
Greg
Los
back.
Angeles area. I'm gonna look like everybody else, and I'm gonna wear a hoodie. And everyone comes in looking like we're in the fucking Bahamas right now. It's
It
not
is
cool.
pretty warm today.
It
I don't know
is
what you want me to say.
not. It is. It's overcast. It makes me feel like we live in Portland.
I guess
Yeah,
it
it's
is
true.
across there.
I like these drizzly LA days. You have to enjoy them while they last.
Yeah, it
Do you
rained for a
write-
bit.
Do you write differently if it's cloudy or moodier weather, or do you not really even take stock notice or whatever?
I
Do
probably
I?
do more.
Who are you talking
Everybody.
to? What's
Everybody.
happening? Where am I?
Well, I guess it
Everyone's
applies to
kinda
all of us, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm more productive when it's rainy.
Really?
Yeah.
Why? Because there's nothing compelling you outside?
Yeah, not that I even go outside. I just feel like I think about it a lot. I spent a lot of time being like, what if I went outside? And I don't. But you get the idea.
Mike,
like
what
it.
about you?
I'm freezing. My camera is already messed up. It's
It
like
is.
Cold? Il fait froid aujourd'hui?
I'm so used to rubbish
Manchester?
weather anyway. Like it makes no difference.
Yeah, so this is why we don't usually use Discord, but we did it so I could
Oh, I hate
adjust
Discord.
the levels for the live, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today, everyone, to celebrate 50 episodes of this lovely little show that we have been doing, confirmed, over a year.
What was our
Is it
first one?
confirmed? Was that official?
It's
I'm not
definitely
sure how
been
much.
more than a year.
I'm not sure how much of what just happened was canon.
We
So,
could probably get
I
him
mean-
back, honestly. We'd probably make it happen. But I did have some questions that I wanted to ask. One, Troy, did you ever play more than the train in Jedi Fallen Order? Excellent. Mike, how's The Last of Us going?
Exactly as it was.
Yeah, don't give me shit.
I finished a Plague Tale. So
What?
Oh, cool.
yeah, I went out there and I done did it.
When?
Did you die?
Have you been hanging on to this trivia?
I
like,
finished it
for
last
weeks and
weekend
weeks?
specifically for the show.
That's
I
hilarious.
thought it was excellent. I really, really liked it, and it seems bizarre
Right?
to me that not so many people are talking about it. Like, I know you and Elise Willems are the two who've always told me to play that game.
Well, it's those W's. We know what's going on.
It's true. The Wintrys, the Willemses. Yes.
It
Well,
crossed over 1 million units sold, so it wasn't a failure by any stretch, but it wasn't as ecstatically talked about as I thought it would be after I played it and realized this is quite good. It's even
really
enjoyed
good.
the crazy semi-spoilers, or very much spoilers, the crazy tornado boss fight at the end is just so over the top, but it kind of earns it by the time you get there. And I loved it. I feel so vindicated that you finished it. I feel like I've made my mark on society now, and like
Now we get to have Grant Kirkhope replace you. It'll be great.
that was inevitable. My version of homework, which I already reported, was finishing The Good Place, which I did ages ago, and also just
Nice.
Yeah, well, that's because you're the
fanatically
best of
loved.
us, clearly. You're the only one who's really committed, so we really appreciate that.
Oh, as far as like completing your menial task? Mm-hmm. This is
I
Among
thought that
Us?
just
Do
meant
your
broadly
tasks.
speaking.
Did you finish Mandalorian, Troy?
Yes.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's good.
That's good.
Austin's mic is
that.
low? I don't know that I believe any of you. He seems fine to me.
Really?
Austin's completely freezed on my screen. I'm assuming I've frozen on yours, right?
You're just
You're
low
jumpy.
frame rate.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
frame jumpy.
You're
It's
like
nice.
a 1920s film reel.
Okay.
These, I don't... They
Complete
don't,
with
okay, I'll just turn
grain
myself down.
and all of the
Yeah.
Vaudevillian? Yeah. I
Can I just say how disconcerting that is when I can't see you actually reaching for the piano?
Who did
all of a
that?
sudden comes out of
Could be
nowhere.
any of
That
us.
really messed me up.
If we're doing updates, I provided, I don't know, Alanah, if you can show it, but I have a Splinter update. Do we want to do a Splinter update? Kinda said
Yeah,
it
I
now,
could
so
show that if you
somehow.
do Twitter
So
DM.
Splinter is this squirrel that came to us on his like last leg, and he was with this guy was not
3 out of
good.
4 were down.
3 out of 4 were down. He was a death's door, and we have a little squirrel table outside.
Interestingly, he came to your door.
came to our door. It's like that's not where you go. Go to the hospital.
Pretty sure that
But-
just means your death.
I would
You
be
said
death's
death's
door.
door,
You
yeah.
are
death.
you are become
I'm here at
death.
your door. Or no, you want the two? That's 2 doors down.
Oh, that's a band.
The
we're
Millers.
just purgatories. Oh, hi, nice to meet you. How is it? It's okay. So he came to us, and this was about at the beginning of quarantine, really. So it's been, almost a year. And this little plucky guy has stuck it out, and we've got a little squirrel table that we put food and other little various sundries. We have a special bag of stuff just for it's heroin for Splinter. But he comes, and I've seen him run all the way down the length of another person's lawn. Once we call him, like, "Hey, be good looking," and he comes running up, and he'll come and eat right out of my hand. And he's
Here he is.
fully back to health.
Here he is.
He's
This is
still
a really
looks
good picture,
super
Troy.
busted. That's Pam. She took that.
Oh,
She had a
that's
little
right.
photo shoot.
She is a
So, like,
photographer.
She Splinter just eats out of her hands. Lets us take pictures.
Should I
of
be
him and
able to
stuff.
see this right now?
No.
No, it's just on the
you
live
can-
stream.
you
It'll
can
be
look
there
at
in a
our-
second if you want to look at the live
We'll
stream.
watch. When we watch the show later, we'll see it then.
You
It is
guys,
fun to watch
do
the
you
show
guys
later.
rewatch the show? I absolutely never do.
No, I'm joking. I've never
Okay, good.
watched the show.
Never. Not once.
I
I
have
don't.
no idea how I come across.
I don't rewatch, but I do thoroughly enjoy perusing the comments.
Yeah, same.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I definitely enjoy the comments of the show, but the
at
show
that
itself,
guy.
I'm not gonna rewatch myself. That's ridiculous. Did you see him?
Looks-
Yeah, he's up there right now.
Looks like
Alanah.
Splinter's missing an ear also. Is that just a
It's
photo?
He's pretty busted. The reason why we called him Splinter is because he looked like Master. And someone was like, "Splinter was a rat." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, dude. He looked like a rat. He looked like a drowned rat when we first found him. But
How
he
very
looks like Master
Plague Tale.
Splinter."
That is
just gonna keep-
quite Plague Tale.
I'm
It
just
is
gonna
it
keep
is really
taking
good.
it back there.
I felt like
I need to check
the
that out.
the score was awesome as well, Austin. I imagine
Who
that's
did
the
the
thing that
score?
resonated with you. The music in that, it was lovely.
Yep.
I wonder how it actually
Olivier.
scored.
Olivier de Rivière wrote the score.
Laurence
And,
Olivier.
did-
But I
very
will
excellent
say,
job.
I think we may have spoken about this once before. I do have beef with games doing word, colon, word. Could it not have just been Plague Tale? Did it have to be Plague Tale, colon, Innocence?
I thought it was
Trademarks?
Innocence, a plague.
Is it because of trademarks?
Usually, that would be my guess. Yeah,
We had a situation with that.
generally.
Yeah. You have to
Say
do
again,
that.
sorry?
There was a situation in the game that I'm working on that had the same thing. They were like, well, they own XYZ,
Yeah.
but if you do XYZ colon boom, then it's yours.
How
Sometimes
bizarre.
it's optimistic franchising, you know.
Yeah, right. You could go Plague Tale, colon, not Innocence, the spicy
Innocence.
sequel.
My favorite is the
Innocent
double.
anymore.
You joke, but like often that's part of the conversation, especially when you're getting like a publisher or a deal. Like you do have to like have a plan for like what if we want to go further with this. You know?
I actually don't
Is that
know
a
who
publisher
published it.
thing or is that a developer call? Who calls that?
On whether a game gets a sequel.
No. On whether this is what we're going to call it. Like, do you go?
I think in a healthy relationship, it's kind of a collaboration. I think usually, yeah. Sorry, did I just is my signal
in
all
a
over the
dictatorial
place? Sorry.
sense.
I
they
mean,
say
demand
this
for
is what you're
sequels,
gonna
I'm
call
sure,
your
is
goddamn game.
certainly a thing that, we've heard of happening in the games industry, that a publisher demanded a sequel. And I imagine that can be really
sure.
tough. And,
Yeah, it can be demanded in the contract. It can be something that's like forced on people. Yeah, potentially.
I remember, like, we didn't call it The Last of Us until we had been filming for a while. Like, it was still
It's originally
tentative
called The
title.
First of Us, right?
It was called The First, and they were like, well, that doesn't work.
Just
and
missed
then it
the
was
initial
called-
launch date, so it had to change the name.
it was an Adam and Eve game, and they really changed things along the way.
And it was Plaid Shirt Man for a while.
It was an Adam and Eve DLC of Assassin's Creed that just got thoroughly rewritten.
Naughty Dog was like, we will take that. Very into it.
How?
By the way, guys,
What?
I gotta show you this. Kerry made cakes, but she made me a special little cake,
Where's mine?
and she also gave me her blowtorch. So I'm gonna. Ooh.
You're not allowed to have
I'm
those.
scared.
This is the end of Mike. We're all going to witness it live. This is some.
This is
some
live content. Oh, look at that! There we go.
That's very
And
sweet.
now I have to work out to switch it off.
This is very David Blaine.
Jason, I hoped.
Wait,
That's
did
awesome.
you start the fire in your neighborhood?
This would be the evidence that would be used against me. So there you go. Oh,
Is that a 50th episode?
that's a 50th episode cupcake? There you go.
Hey, oh, that looks lovely. Is it like red velvet? Some kind of red velvet situation going on there?
So this was my question. It's not red velvet. We're making do because it's quarantine. It looks like red velvet, but it doesn't have the cream cheese apparently.
Yeah, I don't
But
care.
still, I'm
I
sure it's
don't
gonna be
care at all.
lovely.
Cool with me either way.
I'll forward my shipping address to Carrie, if that's cool.
Yeah, I would like one too.
We shall sort you out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time it gets to you in the current climate, especially with Brexit and the increased work at the ports, it'll be a little bit old, I imagine, by that point. But
I would like the candle lit on arrival,
Crispy.
by the way. I hope for a very slow burning candle that can sit like in a Beauty and the Beast glass jar, but going down so slowly that it arrives still going.
do you have to declare that at customs if the thing
Yes.
you're sending
And one
has?
final
I'm mailing
question,
fire.
Is the candle lit? It is. You'll need to fill out this form.
It is. Yeah, we're gonna need that. Yeah.
Do I need to
just a
blow it out?
checkbox.
No. Now that you've told us, you actually have to keep it lit. We just need you to fill out this form. Alanah, the one thing that is like you've I don't know which has changed more, my hats or your mics, because you have a new microphone.
Go through 3. Yeah, I mean, it's your microphone. This
It
is
is my
the
microphone.
Wave 3, which most of my friends use, and I like it a whole lot.
It's the only mic that that has gotten me away from like I'm a super hardcore audio nerd.
It's a USB mic.
And it's a USB mic, and it's awesome.
Yeah, I like it a lot. But I'm having this issue the last 3 times I've tried to use it, where I have to unplug it and plug it back in, or my computer just has no levels.
That's a tech support.
I would also say I don't think I've had my kitchen in the background for any other episodes, but here we are.
No, it's a
But
different.
at least you
angle.
have
I
the
like it.
cyberpunk chair, so we can,
That's true.
Yeah.
we can set aside
We can
conspiracy
deduce from
theories.
that.
Important
Are we
stuff.
going to talk about that?
Wow, is that awful? Yeah, I mean we can. So CD Projekt Red tweeted yesterday. I sent it to you guys.
Yeah, that was the first thing I
update.
saw when I woke up this morning. Was your message?
I felt like it was very similar to like Harrison Ford's speech in Air Force One at the very beginning. He's like, "We will not negotiate. We will not be afraid. It's your turn to be afraid."
How does he do it? You know, I just don't understand how he does it.
How does Harrison Ford do that?
Yeah,
A
Harrison
lot
Ford
of weed.
specifically.
With as little energy as possible. Yeah.
My Secretary of State in that scene is so great. He's just like, "Well, you just did it, didn't you? I want a president. I want a president like that."
You want to know
Yeah.
my favorite
That movie's
trivia
so
about
good.
that movie? Wolfgang Peterson directed that film.
He did.
And
It had a different soundtrack.
yes, do you know who...
I said podcast deja vu. Yes,
Did I bring that
carry
up on this before?
You 100% did, yeah. We've done it
Oh,
live. We've done it
God
live.
damn it. God
Yeah.
damn it.
There's no way I would have found that out in any other context other than this podcast. But
Well,
tell
it's
the story
such
again,
a
sorry.
perfect. It's
I
such a
didn't mean to
perfect.
derail you.
No. It's good. Yeah, I would have read in the comments
Ruined it.
that this was
Oh, I'm sorry, man.
brought up, so you've spared me.
Yeah, we keep doing that after a year, apparently.
We think that's what started this
It's like
tangent.
in the it's like in The Simpsons when they show the trailer for the Itchy and Scratchy movie, and the very end says movie contains 25% additional footage or something like that, where it's basically all there already. But yes, our dear Randy Newman wrote the original Air Force One score, and
You got a plane in me.
he was replaced in less.
Get off of my plane, don't be here. Russian terrorist, you gotta go. Boom,
It's like clairvoyance.
Oh, incredible.
What I love is that Troy has, it's like at this point, Troy is so committed to the brand of hating Randy Newman that even if he secretly loves him, he would never admit it
I
publicly.
can't. I'm too committed to the
Yeah,
fact.
your
you're-
identity
you're
now.
Like
You're
on
deep
my
in.
deathbed, it's like this confessions of everything will be like, and I loved Randy Newman, and Austin will be like, fuck.
I knew it. I knew it all along.
President got on his plane, but he don't know how to
I mean, we could
get
just do this for
there.
the rest of the episode. That seems fine to me.
This is what the audience wants. This is the content.
I'm cool with it.
I love that it was
It
a
would be
very
terrible if this
short
became
road.
a video game
I know.
podcast.
It was
this many
it was a
episodes
very
in.
short road from CDPR to
right, I
Troy
feel like
singing as
we
Randy
All right,
Newman.
let's circle back to that. 'Cause that's
Sort
far
of
more
one of the
important.
most serious things that's happened in the games industry. Just incredibly
Buckle up,
brutal,
kids.
and you were like, you got it.
Well, you made it that.
So they tweeted at about midnight Pacific time last night. Yesterday, we discovered that we have become a victim of a targeted cyber attack, due to which some of our internal systems have been compromised. An unidentified actor gained unauthorized act, and a lot of people have been thrown off by actor. It just means person who acted upon a thing, not an actual. It's not Troy.
Yeah.
I wondered for a second if it was like
Do I
if it was
know?
an actual actor, because then I started thinking about it as like this is like a message that you get from the Matrix, and so I started drawing all these conclusions about how, for some reason
And
Keanu
it was
Reeves.
Keanu Reeves. Gained unauthorized access to our internal network, collected certain data belonging to CD Projekt Capital Group, and left a ransom note, the content of which we will be released to the public. Although some devices in our network have been encrypted, our backups remain intact. We have already secured our IT infrastructure and begun restoring the data. They said they won't negotiate, they're still investigating, etc. And they also published the ransom note, which says, "Hello, CD Projekt. You have been epically pawned," which...
Oh my god.
Get it?
Really nails
Get
the
it.
demographic of the hacker.
Oh.
So we're looking for a millennial.
No, I don't think millennials say pawned. I think you gotta be 40 to say that word these days, but I don't know.
Millennials are getting up there now. Like the millennials are nearly in 40, right?
I think I'm a millennial. I am 27. So almost
I'm
40.
a millennial and I'm
Well,
35.
but all these,
so, like,
isn't
you
there
can-
at least a 10-year
we're getting
range
there.
to all these labels anyway?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
They continued, "We have dumped full copies of the source codes from your Perforce server for Cyberpunk 2077, Witcher 3 Gwent, and the unreleased version of The Witcher 3. We have also dumped all of your documents relating to accounting, administration, legal, HR, investor relations, and more. Also, we have encrypted all of your servers, but we understand that you can most likely recover from backups," which they did. "If we will not come to an agreement, then your source codes will be sold or leaked online, and your documents will be sent to our contacts in gaming journalism. Your public image will go down the shitter even more, and people will see how shitty your company functions. Investors will lose trust in your company, and the stock will dive even lower. You have 48 hours to contact us." So I, now being in dev, read this and read the word Perforce and was like, oh my fucking god. This is
real.
absolutely mortifying. The idea that this could happen is truly fucking terrifying. But I feel like, Mike, you're probably the best person to speak to. What would happen if everything that CD Projekt had ever worked on, all their source code, was leaked online? What does that actually mean?
I mean, it means, I think the source code aspect of it means exactly what people would expect it means. Like, it means that you'd have access to every asset in the game. You'd also, presumably, they would also have all of the assets used to make the game, so all the art assets, all the stuff that, the working files. So, you know, if you think about, like, the word processor you use and then you export a PDF, it would be both the PDF and then the Word document as well. So it'd be all the work leading up to the game. The bit that really matters, in my opinion, and the bit that's really scary is all that HR stuff, all of that private information about employees.
So they
that's
said
the thing that,
to
like,
the best of their ability, and that's the only reason that I didn't bring it up is, you know, the thing that is clearly the most important is my brain goes to, am I going to get doxxed? They have my home address. But they did say...
Very probably.
Well, no, they said that the compromised systems did not contain any personal data about players or use of services. It is entirely possible that any parties that may have been affected due to the breach, they said they're contacting them, but I don't know. I have no idea if this affects, you know, a lot of the people I know who work there. It's brutal, but I feel like that part is probably okay, and I feel like if it weren't, I probably would have received an email. My logic.
I hope so. I hope so. I really hope you're right. That's, yeah.
Does it precipitate or necessitate, rather, a complete, like, that has engine, that has everything. So in order to, do you have to, like, burn, like, I don't know if you see it, but thanks to Austin Wintry, whom I believe you guys have met, the whole thing of Gene Hackman in Enemy of the State, where he was like,
You made a phone call!
You made a phone call! And he torches his entire place, and he's like, I was secure for 25 years. Is it that kind of thing where it's like, we have to burn this thing down and completely rebuild it back up? Because if we don't, there could always be a backdoor into our system because someone would have the source code, they would have everything. Is it that fundamental and widespread?
I would think source code for the game is not the same as network.
Well,
you know,
we also, even if the source code leaks... No, it's not the same as network access. Not that it seems like they got everything they needed, but they're not. It wouldn't be them leaking network access to everyone. The source code isn't necessarily useful if we don't have all of their tools as well. But I mean, again,
we might have that as well.
They could, yeah. We don't know. It essentially means that everything that they've ever made is available to absolutely everyone, which devalues everything they've made. But I don't know that this has happened before. Not in this space.
Happened with games before, right? I think games have happened like this before.
Well, I have to ask also, is it potentially a bluff? Is it possible? Like, could they verify that they had this?
Well, they verified. I mean, I think this is true. They put a README note in their system, so they did definitely get in. Yeah, and they did also lock stuff down, which they did have to. Have a backup, you know, their devices.
If you have rights access to a server, if you can save a file to a server, then you've got everything you need to read. No one can write to a server without being able to also read from a server and copy stuff off. So no,
copy that makes sense.
Says it's.
So do you think that their play of, like, we will not negotiate with terrorists is the right play, or like what's the collateral damage of doing that? I mean, there's look,
well, everything we've ever learned has said don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah, but that needs to be said. The people that are doing this are, no matter, I don't care what you find out about CD Projekt Red, there is nothing you can find out that's going to make them look worse than you. This isn't cool. There's nothing that's laudable about this. You're a despicable person. It's a despicable act. I will say that. I will not qualify them
as a despicable
person, but it's a despicable act. That is irredeemable. The notion, though, of going, fine, we're just going to let this happen and try to pull the punch, I don't know what the play is. I don't know if it's you know what, we're going to, I mean, clearly they've owned it and said, we're not negotiating and we're going to let this happen. That's the play. So it's either balls in your court and either put up or shut up, which the only thing I can think of, this is all speculation, is that they don't think that they actually have all of the information.
No, it's that they have all of the information forever, meaning that if you negotiate with them once, they could just get that for the rest of your life. Like, they are always going to have that source code. You can't get the source code off of them. It doesn't work that way. So they are always forever going to be able to be like, give us $1 million a month. They have to just be like, you do whatever you're going to do.
Yeah, I would say that was my instinct also, is that there's an instant recognition of we can't undo what's been done, so we may as well shore up our preparation for whatever the response will be. At least, I feel bad for those folks. They've had a hell. I mean, say what you want about the
what you think of the game. They've gotten their ass handed to them.
Well, and also setting aside, the debate about the nature of management and because I don't know, I'm not inside. I only see what people say, and I refuse to judge people I don't know internally and all that. But I do know from the people I do know that there, obviously in the music department, everyone really is doing their best, really trying to make something great and outperform their already excellent game track record. And God, talk about
in the midst of a global pandemic, in the midst of all of that.
Yeah, talk about a
It's just been such a bad 12 months for those people. It sucks. Especially if they were in conditions that led to crunch. That makes it all even worse. Like, this happening to people who were working their asses off when they didn't need to be is even worse. It just gets worse and worse. It's just so brutal. But I agree, Trey. This is absolutely irredeemable. A truly disgusting thing to do. That no matter how you feel about the game, is like, I'm never going to be like, this is the right thing to do. Burn them to the ground. Absolutely not. This is real people. Like, if you have beef, you probably have beef with upper management, not with the individual people who are broadly affected by this and having their life's work leaked online. But
upper management won't be in any way directly affected by this.
They're still getting bonuses.
But the entire team whose HR records are in there, if that is the case, and we'll see, then that's a horrible thing.
I really hope that's not the case. But yeah, to double back, Mike, what do you think actually happens if the Witcher 3 source code is leaked online? What does that mean?
Honestly, technically, I would guess not a lot, because ultimately, I mean, I'm assuming all these games are already pirated anyway, so you can, if you want to play any of these games without paying,
fully moddable,
have at it, right? Like, all moddable. You've got everything's actually out there from like most users' point of view. Mm-hmm. So I guess there's theoretically like a competitor could get a look under the hood, but again, like, the games industry generally, and I guess that will bring us eventually to the other big topic of the week. I was
going to say, this is a great segue. I see it coming.
Most secrets in game dev don't stay secret for very long. There's a GDC talk. There's a conversation down the bar between two respected people. Like, ultimately, I don't think there's probably just in terms of,
there's explicit sharing, like come on over to our studio so we can show you how this thing works. We know you're working on something kind of similar. Like, I hear stories like that all the time amongst devs.
So it's embarrassing. Really, it's embarrassing, but
it's really cool.
Say again.
Sony's really collaborative. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone will have already learned all of this. I think honestly, it's embarrassing. It's if there is like, personnel data, legal data, that kind of stuff. It's very telling that, like, when the Sony leaks happened, for example, I assume that included a bunch of footage of movies and stuff like that. Was it Sony? It was Sony, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Got hit by, yeah. But the stuff that was actually headlines, the stuff that was actually damaging to Sony was all the email records, was all of the stuff that was more
like
human.
Salary negotiation kind of shit.
Yeah. So I'd imagine that's the more damaging stuff rather than what's on their hard drives with the game. Like, that stuff, ultimately, hackers have already probably gleaned most of the stuff that's interesting from Cyberpunk already, I would assume, in that
Again,
sense.
The game is already moddable. It's, that is already a thing we can do.
I guess at least this wasn't October that this happened, or imagine with everything going on.
Well, that's where it would have had a material impact, right? Because that would have preceded the game coming out and selling all the copies it did. So yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm sure there's layers to this that I'd be missing, but it's an immediate reaction. The human side's more damaging than the game.
There's a different point between, like, here you can play the game for free. That would obviously have had an impact, but if it had come out right before the game was going to ship, there's still pre-orders there. I don't know. I guess you could cancel your pre-orders, but people who don't pre-order and buy day one or by week after that surely would have impacted. But
it wouldn't have made too much of a difference because it's really the console version that is a major problem. so you even if you could rip the code and play the game, it would have technically been the same thing reviewers played, which I think, overall got like an 8 or something. Like, I don't think it's the console version that
funny to imagine
impacted them.
Right.
It's funny to imagine an alternate.
You can rip that code, but how are you presenting it? It's like someone running down the street with all of the ingredients to a cake. You still got to fucking bake it. But what I was going to say was the impact of the leaks for The Last of Us did not have an impact on the sales.
Yeah.
At least that we can measure. Who's to say? But it didn't. It still outperformed what they expected it to do, even in light of that. I'm curious though, Mike. What were you going to segue into? You're like, this is a perfect segue into that. Is this the
WB?
I was going to say that like one of the strengths of this industry is that ultimately there aren't many there's trade secrets, of course, especially like with the engine companies. There's a lot of patented tech, a lot of private tech that's not known. But actually, no, that's nonsense as well, because Epic shares its source code. Like, the games industry generally overshares information. GDC every year, if I want, I remember actually, like, with Volume, we ripped off a bunch of the coding practices that led to how, what was it we looked at? It was how Infamous handled its character movement. Like, we just literally stole that. But I didn't have to hack anything. It was a GDC talk. It was just all out there and all presented. So the games industry generally shares, because we all understand that our innovations, our unique, interesting thing that makes our game work, is built on top of a bunch of mechanics that we're taking from other games, which brings us to the patent issue with Warner Brothers, where they're locking down a mechanic, which is generally massively frowned upon, because that's not... You don't get the Mordor game. Sorry, Shadow. I still call it the Mordor game. I still struggle with that. You don't get those games without Assassin's Creed.
Or Batman.
You don't get those games
I guess they own,
without Batman, which they own, but still. Like, you've got everyone's building on the shoulders of everyone else. That's the games industry. Otherwise
all art. That's all human activity.
Right? Exactly.
The interesting component to the conversation, though, that I think is worthy of at least talking about is, and I understand Warner Brothers is that they're daddy warbucks, right? So they give an allowance to Monolith, who's the teenager that gets an allowance for mowing their lawns. Anything that is created under that banner, Monolith, unless there's something that's negotiated, is the property of Warner Brothers Games.
Correct.
So they developed
Warner Brothers owns the lawn, even if they mowed it. Yeah.
Exactly. Well said. But
they keep all the bags of grass clippings in the garage too.
But the people that did the work,
I mean, not to get political, but capitalism has some slight flaws, some slight issues.
I can't think of any.
But it also allows...
What about this? But what about this? I mean, I don't want to derail you, Troy, but what about this targets capitalism for you? I mean, when someone finances something, it's still pending a negotiation. People, for example, it's not a default position that if you pay me, you automatically own what I create. Everything is a negotiation. So
I was taking a cheap shot. It would be really cool if, the people who made things got to benefit from the production of that. But to be honest, we're moving into like socialist theory at a larger scale, and probably it's beyond the scope of this conversation. I was using it in a very facetious, jokey way. Kind of on brand, though, right?
Somehow let's talk about Jesus and Star Wars, and we'll tick every box.
I was making a cheap joke, to be honest, Austin, is the answer to your question. I was making a cheap joke. Yeah. Carry on, Troy.
All right. I got you.
I would throw it back to you, Mike. If you created, if you created something like they did, which was truly an industry shifting event, they did. I mean, you could trace their lineage back to fucking Pong if you wanted to. It's like, if we didn't have this, we wouldn't have this. If we didn't have this, but there are direct ties to Assassin's Creed, to especially the fighting mechanic in Arkham. Specifically, so it's a natural progression and an evolution of those mechanics. But what they did with the Nemesis system is what made. They didn't care about those Lord of the Rings. They didn't care about anything other than the fact it's like, wow, this is the first next gen game that we've really seen, something that really utilizes the power that's under the hood. If you had created something like that, and you did it under the auspices and the shingles of whomever, and they decided that they were going to patent that, can you discuss how you would feel about that? Do you feel like that's what I signed up for?
Probably I can't talk publicly in that situation, right? Probably I would be in a difficult position contractually. Like I wouldn't be able to criticize them publicly, but I'd definitely be complaining to my friends about it. That sucks. No, I think there's an argument for copyrights. I think there's an argument for trademarks. Obviously, as someone who's created IP, I definitely benefit from you can't release your game called Thomas Was Alone tomorrow, right? That's a benefit I'm conveyed by the idea.
I was going to do the same thing, Austin.
By the idea of copyright.
Kills your pitch, doesn't it, Austin?
But I think game mechanics do cross a line. I think ultimately we're talking here about a methodology of producing something. We're not talking about something which someone made, like the Nemesis system and its detail and its nuance and the writing that leads to those cool orc names and the way this all works. That stuff's all lovely. And that stuff is correctly protected by copyright. Like you can't just go and take all those art assets, all those dialogues, all those writing, all of the art and creativity that's gone into that process and put that in your game. But in terms of game mechanics are an idea, they're a concept. It would be the equivalent of if, a filmmaker invented a new approach to filming. If Fincher patented the Fincher aesthetic, that would suck, right? That would freeze out a bunch of new filmmakers from innovating, doing something fresh. And also, cynically, Fincher can only make so many movies. So, like, if I love his aesthetic, but even roll even further, like, what if the dolly camera was patented? In the real world, this makes sense, because if you invented new technology and you have the facility to sell that technology onto people or license it or use it, that's great.
I think the closest film equivalent, like, to use your specific example, when the Wachowskis...
It's like if C# was patented.
Remember the rotating multicam matrix thing? That would be an example of a very specific innovation that, of course, other films, most awkwardly, Charlie's Angels, tried to use to create their own version of that, right?
But they did patent
that.
Right,
and that would be that thing?
No, that bullet time is technically a different patent.
Is that because
and also
that was
I think
for
that might not be, I think that
Max
might be a
Payne?
trademark. I think that's not patented.
You're right, it's trademarked. You're right.
It's
the literal...
You can put bullet time in, you just can't call it bullet time.
Yeah.
But the crucial thing, and where the Matrix example is a really good example, but this is true of the game thing as well, is, now Matrix 4, I assume it's the Wachowskis directing it. I don't actually know if is it the Wachowskis directing?
I think it's one Wachowski?
One Wachowski.
They are involved to one degree.
Right. Anyway, I'm sure they profit from it, right? They make the Matrix 4, but crucially, Matrix 4 will be using a bunch of visual effects techniques and skill and processes that are the direct result of people ripping off the stuff they pioneered in the 2000s. If the Matrix had locked down all of its constituent elements that made it unique and exciting, then that would have stifled the growth of all of the industries that came after the Matrix to kind of innovate all that visual effects, all of the concept in the Matrix. I believe it was the first film to do this, where they kind of made a 3D model of the set and kind of projection mapped onto that so you could do the fly around. Because, of course, in those leaning back being shot by bullets, that entire environment is CG. All of these techniques that were pioneered in the Matrix, if those had been locked down, the Matrix 4 can't happen because there's not been 20 years of innovation building off of that.
Yeah, you're right. It would be.
That's the case here.
It would be as though the Matrix 4 was made in 2006 or whatever. There had been no actual progress.
And that's where the difference lies. And that's where there's a problem. The games I tweeted this. I think it's a decent example. I don't want to go into specifics because it's rude. There's literally a mechanic that I think we originated, or a small little thing we originated in one of our games years ago. I'm not going to...
Loneliness.
It was jumping. It was you press the button, you jump. But there was a specific mechanic that we had in one of our games early on, and it's a mechanic that I'm interested in going back to and doing more with. If I was to sit down and try in modern engine to rebuild that mechanic and go for it, that would cost me time and money and effort to get to the point where I can experiment. I bought an asset for $30 on the Unity Asset Store, which is a copy of that mechanic, and I was away and making my new take on that idea within an hour. That's the difference. I benefit from an environment. This is a literal example of what I'm talking about with the Matrix. I benefit directly from the idea that me of the past didn't lock that down. Now, of course, I wouldn't have been able to afford to have locked it down. I'm the beneficiary as well.
There are so many music production examples. Sorry, Trey, go ahead.
No.
Well, I can just briefly say there are so many music production examples that are very comparable to this as well.
See, ours is dun 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 dun.
Yeah. I actually was thinking about that exact one because that's so there's two threads there. The whole Vanilla Ice and like the notion of music copyright is interesting because there have been so many music copyright lawsuits over the years that I think they've narrowed it down to it's like 4 or 5 consecutive identical notes is what enters you into the sort of the dangerous zone, because there is, I think they do, I'll have to go talk to some music copyright lawyers to make sure I'm not speaking out of turn, but I do think intent matters. Like if you can kind of demonstrate that you've never heard X, Y, Z before, then you are more safe. But if it's like the same genre of music, and it's obviously that if that's your whole defense, like I never heard that piece before, you're likely on thin ice. Like that's a losing battle, but it's still, I think, hypothetically winnable. But in the case of production, to Mike's point, if you go to some really, really savvy production of like hip hop albums or like trance, early 2000s, techno kind of EDM, early EDM, the way to create a lot of these sounds was really slow and tedious manipulation of audio, and even simple little like, reverse, kind of things where you're having to make everything manually. And now there's plugins where, and they're even labeled by, in fact, I remember seeing Mick Gordon shared a screenshot of, he was using some plugin and there was, it comes with all these presets that you can do. And one of the settings was called like the Rip and Tearathon or something, because they literally modeled one of their own presets on something he had done in Doom 2016. And so it's like, if that had been illegal, that's or somehow obstructed, it would have stifled other people's ability to make it, because the notion of, I better hang on and protect this at all costs, I think also comes with this subtext of I don't believe in myself to ever have another idea ever again. And
or
it's
to develop this idea better and faster than my competitors.
Or just being afraid that something is even slightly similar because of patent law is a huge thing too. And to music, before we jump to you, Mike, I was watching a thing about Kanye and the amount of samples he's used the other day. And most of his best songs heavily sample other songs, but they're so good and it's completely different. He's reinvented it, and I'm sure that that's how he gets around it legally. But to limit that kind of thing entirely, we'd lose a lot of good music.
But there's also a licensing process for using samples that's perfectly above board. Like there's no obstacle to that.
True.
Two things. I think that that help contextualize this. First of all, I feel like what this does is it automatically changes the landscape to Coke and Pepsi. It's both going to be, someone's going to go out and they're going to make a Pepsi. If this is the Coke, someone's going to go make a Pepsi. They're going to get as close to that formula as possible without it being within, I know, trust me, I don't like either of them. I'm a Dr. Pepper kid, if anything. But we're going to go, it's not your formula, see what we can do. But at the end of the day, it's a soft drink, and that's what people want. So then you start marketing. Do you want the Nemesis system or do you want the enemy system? Do you know what I mean? Like you're going to get as close to it as possible, because it becomes a blatant alternative to it, which defeats the purpose, because you're not the only one selling Coke, or as we would say in Texas, you're not the only one selling soda. So the other thing is that I
that is a Texas thing, isn't it? My mom who grew up in Arlington says Coke as
Coke?
It's a placeholder for all forms of soda.
Really?
What kind of Coke you want? I want.
You just
Dr.
gave me
Pepper.
such a. You just gave me such a like out of the blue flashback of her saying, "I'd like a Coke."
Yeah,
what kind?
straight.
Oh, Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
Do
give
you
me a
say
Sprite.
Coke?
That's
If
not a
people
Coke.
say what kind, you just say, or do you say cola?
No, never say
No
Coca-Cola.
one would say
So
Cola.
you'd say Coke and then you'd say Coke again.
If you wanted a
Can I
Coke,
get a Coke? What kind? Just Coke. You have Diet Coke?
It's soft drink.
It's
in
like
Australia.
Latin animal names.
Which I like soft drink because it implies that we base our naming conventions on hard drink being liquor.
Yeah, soft drink.
Yeah.
what I like about soft drink is that you're using a phrase that's from like a half a century before you were born.
So is fizzy pop and soda pop and soda water.
To me,
Soda
soft drink
water
is such an antiquated way to say it. It's charming.
Well, things take a long time to get to Australia. It's far away.
True.
Okay?
The second thing that I would say about this is
on a
I
raft.
do feel before it's easy to vilify, but I look at this from a different perspective and go, okay, instead of assuming that Warner Brothers Games is this evil, muhahaha, people filled with machinations and trying to control the industry, they're looking down the pike and going, at some point, us making video games is not going to be sustainable. It's going to be a game prices are going to go down. They've had a studio that has closed down. They've seen a drop off in sales. So they're looking at going, what is another way for us to be able to remain Warner Brothers games? I have no idea if this is what these people are thinking or not. I'm just speculating. But to me going, what if we did what Epic did, which was maybe it's not so much about making the game, but making how games are made is the thing. And let's sell the
Although
engine.
in fairness, Epic also made Fortnite.
And also Epic sell a product for making games. You're talking about an idea.
I'm talking about an engine.
Well, they're not patenting the
Saying
engine.
No.
That's not-
They're not patenting the engine. I agree with that notion. It's a different delivery method or different delivery method for the same thing. It's about what if it's not so much about making this IP, selling this game, trying to get discs, moving all of that and doing collector's editions, everything else. What if there's a broader way for us to be still Warner Brothers games? And what if it's that selling the tech? I don't know. I'm not agreeing. I love the notion of
selling tech would be fine. Like I'd buy a tool that would help me do a job. That's absolutely fine. But you can't sell me the
preventing people
concept
from
of a
doing
hammer.
that's a
If you're
different.
just sell me a hammer, don't sell me the concept. Can I
is the
throw
thing
one more thing in? Go on.
Well, I was going to ask you the question, Mike. That's a thing that I've seen people
Sure.
say is that is them patenting it good because it means that other people can buy it from them and use it. I don't know how that works. Is that
That's what they said they wanted
Yeah.
to do, though, in this. It was like,
did
you
they?
can't... Well, Kotaku kind of shades the article a little
licensing.
bit by saying is like, this would prevent people from doing it without negotiating and striking a deal with them. So what that implies is like, we want other people to use this, but we're not going to give it away for free. So...
Yeah. So that kind of combines with the point I was going to make originally, which is I think the other thing here is I think we as, and this is definitely something I've had conversations with lawyers about, patents we assume as consumers, because you see the patent, you see like a sheet of paper with like a really crudely drawn drawing of something on it and some pages of text. And we go, okay, I take that document, I look at it, that defines what this is, and then I'm good to go. Either, as you say, Troy, I kind of avoid the recipe or I call up Warner Brothers. That is not the process of a patent in terms of how, as a business owner, I have to treat it. To get in the room and find out what that document actually says cost me tens of thousands of dollars in terms of legal fees, in terms of actual patent attorneys who know how to read those kind of documents. Because the layman's concept of like what that means, or the journalist's concept of what that sort of means, is obviously not legal. It's not like you can't defend yourself in a court as much as movies convince you of it, because you just don't know the language and the grammar of that world. So a patent costs me, if I want to even engage with the conversation, money. Just if my next game has, and my understanding of this is this patent protecting the idea of a hierarchy of enemies who are affected by my interaction. If that's a thing I want in my next game, Warner Brothers just cost me $20,000 just to find out if my thing is close enough to Coke that I need to worry.
Unless there's a delivery method for that, or that will always be the way because of the way that patents work.
In the same way as any like legal case, like if you walk into that room without a lawyer, you're probably like screwing yourself over, right? Like you need a professional who understands that stuff because it's so archaic, it's so messy, and
is there
like,
a difference between a global
owner,
patent
you've got to think
and
these things.
is there because it's a U.S. patent, right? So does that apply to people who are making a game in the UK?
This would be the first question I'd ask of the lawyer who costs hundreds of dollars an hour. That's the thing, right? Like that's the problem is I don't know. Like I can't speak from authority. I don't know. But I know in the past I've asked these questions of lawyers, and that's the kind of ballpark kind of to find out whether a patent is a problem is that kind of money. But then you also, yes, you can license it, but at that point, like, to be fair, you're a slum landlord at that point. Like you're just, I have to, in the same way as if I'm poor, I need to live somewhere. So, and if I can't afford a nice place, then I'm going to end up having to live somewhere crap. But a landlord then can charge me whatever they want for that. Again, I feel like I am the socialist on this show. I apologize, but like there is holding land does not make you a business person, and holding a patent doesn't make you a game studio. That's a bold statement.
When you watch, but it's interesting because I've watched a lot of Shark Tank in my day, and one of the first questions they always ask is when somebody comes in with an idea that's like reasonably novel but not groundbreaking. But they're also going to be invariably, if the business even gets a little bit of traction, competing with big juggernaut businesses that are already well established in whatever industry that is. One of the first questions I always ask is, do you have any kind of protection? And the person will say, to your point about what exactly the patent actually covers, the person will say, oh, well, I'm making an example up, but they'll say, I've developed a different kind of coffee cup and we've changed the angle on the handle. So we have a utility patent on handle angles. And it's like they have this thing that is so drilled down to practically the molecular level on what their thing is, that what that also means is that to get around the patent, a slightly different angle now is outside the scope of what they specifically patented. And that's always one of those first questions where the investors are trying to understand, how protected are you? Is this one of those things that your patent is actually meaningless because the only thing that you could viably patent is something so esoteric and small that, it's basically just for the cheap
possibly the
knockoffs.
case here? Is that it's
I think that was kind of Mike's point. Who knows? To even review the document is a legal
Give me 20 grand, and I'll find out for you. But the other thing is the cooling effect just generally, right? Like, I remember I wrote, after playing the Shadow Mordor, I wrote a blog post that ended up, I think it's the most read thing I ever bloody wrote, about the Nemesis system and how cool it was, but also how the Nemesis system, like, technically, and I actually made the argument in this article that, like, the value of the Nemesis system is the idea, because technically it's relatively not easy to duplicate, but like understandable on a AAA budget to replicate that mechanic. And I wrote that piece and it ended with, I bet there's going to be 5 games next year released that have something similar to this. And what did we actually see? We saw very few games with the Nemesis system. And I'd always assumed that that's because there was some technical hurdle I wasn't aware of. But actually, if you look at it, it's a cooling effect. Warner Brothers have been trying to patent this mechanic for so long and been known by the industry at large to be trying to patent this concept for so long that no one wanted to be the people who'd invested 5 years into something that then imagine if you're a AAA studio right now working on a game with this mechanic. You're screwed. Yeah. Like, you're basically just going to have to pay whatever Warner Brothers asks you to. But and I think the only AAA game I can think of that's gotten very close is Assassin's Creed. I feel like
a
couple of the Assassin's Creed, but that's Ubisoft.
Sort of perfectly to
studio.
Mike's point, though, that like the games, the idea is ping-ponging back and forth because there wouldn't even be Mordor without Assassin's Creed to begin with. I mean, it's exactly the Matrix example.
You're gonna see a Warner Brothers game with this mechanic in once every 2 or 3 years, realistically at most.
Well, that's the other thing.
This concept isn't going to evolve. It's not going to look at the loadings. I'm not the first person to point this out. I've seen this point everywhere. But the loading screen minigame thing, which came out of patent just in time for loading screens to be irrelevant.
Yeah,
it's a whole genre of games we missed out on because it's not like in that time they were making loads of games with that feature. No, they just sat on it.
It also seems like it kind of hamstrings Warner Brothers to be able to, like, you need to put this whirly dingy inside your game. You're like, well, that doesn't allow us to innovate on the type of, it's like, no, this is the kind of games that we make because we own this patent, and if nobody uses it, it's like if Elon Musk or Tesla started deciding to make, combustible engine cars, you're like, you own the patent on that engine or that design. Why wouldn't you use it? So
it reminds me of
that's a weird part is that they haven't been using it the whole time. I wish it were in Mad Max. It would have been so neat to have a Nemesis system in Mad Max.
But that was the developer and Avalanche. I don't think had the ability to do that. Like, that was a very ambitious game for Avalanche, and they had been working on that game for so long, and they weren't competing with or even contemporaries. Where, I mean, fucking Shadow of Mordor was in development for forever, and it's because that's what they worked on first.
I keep seeing people make
that's the beauty. First. Sorry, go on.
I keep seeing people.
I think we would make the same point.
It keeps happening. No, I don't know. I keep seeing people make references to what if id had patented the first-person shooter. And I mean, naturally, that's, to me, my head goes, I don't think that would have worked out because that's an entire video game genre rather than just a piece of an idea. That seems
because they didn't patent it.
Right. And if they had patented it at the time, then it never would have been anything more than just this video game idea. And it's entirely possible that they could have because they made something completely new.
I think that's such a perfect
third-person
example.
action game isn't a genre until you let it be a genre. Like,
Yeah, I think to Mike's point about Matrix 4 benefiting from the interstitial 20 years of people building up on what the first 3 Matrix films did. Imagine, think of the glory kill in the recent Dooms as I feel like that whole sort of sub mechanic is a direct result of them saying, how do we push the first person experience further? And which they would not have had the inclination to do if there hadn't been the last 30 years
I
of
got a
other
better
people
one.
making
Cover
it.
systems. Just a little niche feature. Cover systems.
Right.
Imagine if cover systems had been locked down from what was it? Well, it wasn't Gears of War. The first
Gears
one was
popularized it, and then GTA.
Gears popularized it.
Who did it first? I'm not sure.
Is it Siphon Filter?
Yeah, maybe.
Not Siphon. Anyway, but imagine if that got locked down. That would have if cover-based action had been locked in at that point, we would have a completely different. Every first-party PlayStation game would be different, right? Like that's a massive impact on everything that's come since. And that's the issue here. The other thing that's interesting is it's a complex mechanic, but one of the funniest things I saw was when this news story broke, there was an indie developer who went on stream and had made like a grey box UI version of this mechanic in 6 hours in Unity as a fun messing around kind of thing based on this. I think mainly as a troll. And yes, that would not have been like a shippable AAA game mechanic after 6 hours. But how much would the AAAs benefit from 50 indies making a sloppy version of that system that they could then recycle back into their next game? It's closing a door, and I think that's a shame.
For sure.
With your collective permission, since I know we're coming up on the end of our time here.
We are. I do have to get back to work.
I have to drop some trivia because today is a unique day of the year, and it's wonderful. It's just wonderful.
February
coincidence
9th.
that we would
That's
be.
Right.
Yeah,
I forgot. Today is the day of.
Today is the day where
groundhogs get eaten. Or something.
No. So yesterday, the two colossus composers in Hollywood history are John Williams and Jerry Goldsmith. Yesterday was Williams's birthday. Tomorrow is Goldsmith's birthday. So we are in that
Today's
magical
kind
little
of
day. And today is our 50th birthday. So here's some cool trivia for you that a friend of mine shared in response to this same phenomenon. A good friend of mine who was is a record label producer who worked with both of them many times. He said, if you look at the 40-year period from 1965 to 2005, 40 years. That's half the film industry's lifetime up to that point. There were only 3 years in which one or both of them was not Oscar nominated.
Wow.
Can you from 1965 to 2005? And here's another interesting trivia about John Williams specifically, since yesterday was his 89th birthday.
6 toes on left foot.
John Williams... a friend of mine made this assertion, and I tried to research it. It looks correct, but I will put the caveat that I couldn't prove it. But if you look at crew members associated with films, and you take all the films that they worked on and create the cumulative box office, you can rank people based on how much money globally their films made. You know, I think it's like Spielberg, the films that he's directed is like a net of something like $10 billion worldwide or something crazy. John Williams, the net earnings of his films in his lifetime makes him the number one in the entire film industry across all categories, with because the unadjusted for inflation is $25 billion. But that's, Star Wars, for example, was $300 million in $1977. So it's closer to $1 billion in today's.
Jesus.
So it's like, Williams is, he's considerably more than every other director, producer.
Well, have you seen his Instagram? It's ridiculous. Like the lifestyle he leads as a result.
That is.
Actually, the best part is he has the most. Did you ever see there was a video? There was a video that he doesn't even have a cell phone. He literally writes pen and paper, doesn't own a cell phone.
Sounds nice.
Amazing.
Sounds really nice.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
I like that.
It's he has an incredibly by LA, in the LA, adjusted for LA spectrum, he has a very middle class, normal house. He doesn't live in some Beverly Hills mansion. And it's nicer home than, adjusted for all median across the United States. But by LA terms, he lives quite modestly. He's an anomaly. There will never be another. Jerry sadly has been gone for almost 20 years now. But how
old would Jerry Goldsmith have been?
Tomorrow would be Jerry's 92nd birthday if he were alive. He died at age 75.
So he only had 8 years on Williams?
He has 3 years. Williams born 1932, Jerry 1929.
I thought John Williams turned 84.
89 yesterday.
89.
Yeah, they were close in age, but and Jerry famously scored almost entirely horrible, bad flop. He scored a handful of classics like Alien, Planet of the Apes, Patton, et cetera, et cetera. But many, many, many movies were just dumpster fires, and the best part of them were the score. So his cumulative lifetime worldwide gross is like $6 billion or something, far behind Williams.
Richard Burton has
wild.
a great quote. He said, "Even it may be rubbish, but if it is, be the best rubbish in it."
Yeah, he was. The way my agent who used to rep Jerry and has all these great stories, once the way he phrased it was, Jerry always scored the movie that the producers thought they were making in their head.
That is really good.
Like they're picturing themselves at the Oscars winning Best Picture, and so Jerry scored that vision of the film, and then everybody saw it and was like, "Oh, this is not good."
Score's great.
All right, before we wrap,
thank you for indulging my
Of
trivia.
course, thank you for bringing
That was
trivia.
great, man. That was
very
great.
cool.
I'm kind of disappointed that Austin didn't make another wonderful musical for us for 50. He kind of disappointed me a little bit.
That was a one-off.
Yeah.
That
Standards
was
was
also a
set.
pack special, but it's different. But we do have new merch. Let me slide it over real quick.
Oh yeah,
Woohoo! So
haven't
if
seen
you've heard me clicking
I haven't.
or seen me looking at my PC, it's because I've been trying to get it to go live, but Red Bubble keeps giving me this something went
Rings?
wrong area, so I'm going to have to figure that out, but this is how it looks on my back end. We basically got artist I'm a big fan of, Ollie Hoff. I basically was like, make whatever you want. And so you can see, like, if you're on the live stream, this is the stuff that's disabled. This is the stuff that's enabled. It's on phone cases and stickers and pillows and mugs.
Oh, it's on stickers, mate.
Yeah, you got it on stickers. You got it on drawstring bags, tablet cases, clocks. I like the clock a whole lot. I think that's really neat. So
I
yeah.
might put it on my ute.
Nice. A huge thanks to Ollie. All of the proceeds from any of our merch will go to charity. And thank you for joining us
What?
live.
I'm joking.
Well, I should ask you guys
everybody.
which charity for the record. This month I've been raising money for Color of Change, but I will definitely talk to you guys about that first. But yes, I will get that up as soon as I can. Thank you to everyone who's joining us live here. I think based on the audio, I will probably publish the video as normal on Friday. This is just a live version that apparently sounds kind of bad because it always does.
That's us.
And we will see you
Is
for
there
another...
actually a very noticeable difference in Discord than on Zoom? It's very odd, but I can really hear it.
It's because Discord filters things itself. It has a different filter system. Generally, Discord audio is better, but it's still, my mic's not being filtered. There's no background noise from any of you right now, though. It's pretty neat. But we'll go back to Zoom probably. I don't know. We're scared out here in the world of Discord, so it's a scary land.
It's true. I feel very intimidated.
All right, we will see you all next time.
Bye.